I can, when I have the time on my morning commute, I stop in and talk about what's going on. And I have not been able to do much content because I've been consumed with a series of unfortunate events, but hopefully we're back at it here and I'm able to get things going. I would like to start off by saying, one of the themes of this channel is that this is the Working Class Chronicles. And as I've been expanding this conversation and having it in more diverse places, I have really realized that the need is great, right? And so this is where I recruit you all to this task, this journey. So there's a Working Class Chronicles page on Facebook, and I will post a link when I come in later this evening to this thread, to this conversation. I want you to join that page because there I'm going to start developing and curating that space. And if you are interested in helping create content there, articles, postings, sharing, do that, because literally that page is going to be dedicated to us, the working class, where we can talk about our issues. But I also realized that there was also a need for there to be a space for people who are dealing with work situations, and particularly hostile work environments. Just I guess because I'm focused in on it right now, I'm just running across all these stories and having all these conversations about navigating toxic workspaces. So what I want to do is make sure that we have a space for that. I am going to curate a clubhouse room for meeting space for hostile work environments. I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to remain anonymous because because one thing about it, social media gets people fired all the time. But I do know people want to vent and they want to talk to people who are going through similar things that they are going through. However, with the clubhouse room, because of the way it works, right? Those conversations for me are often toxic and a lot of things get out of hand. I will allow everybody to come up on the stage and share and talk and ask questions. However, you need to send an email before you come up because I don't want to open up a space to where people are just coming in trolling, collecting information, harassing people. You are going to have to be vetted before you're allowed to sit in the space. And I just think that's fair to people. And of course, you'll be able to make up a profile and come in. You don't have to have your name on it or anything. But what you're not going to do is come in and harass people who are dealing with things, who are barely holding on, or, you're just tired. You have to go to work every day anyway, and you're dealing with things there. I'm not going to create a social space where you got to come and deal with toxicity here as well. So that is going to be that. That'll be the caveat to that. But I do think we need to have a place for people to come and talk about their situations and maybe get some tips and ideas about how to grow in their workspace, or if they're navigating a toxic work environment, how to deal with that. We talked about on the Hebrew Woman show the other day, Shalom Zell, and there's Zell down there now. We talked about strategic planning for when you're going to meetings, proper seating for when you're going to forums, strategic seating, strategic planning for meetings. We're going to talk about all that in those spaces, and I just want to give you all a safe space to do it with, and I use that term very loosely because you guys know, for those of you who follow me, I have an issue with the whole term safe space. But I do want to do that. I think that there is something startling about the realization that your contributions, your hard work, your years of service are not appreciated, that you are undervalued and underappreciated, that literally if you disappear tomorrow, the world will just keep moving. And of course it would, right? Because we have to keep going. But people want to feel like when they go to work that their contributions are appreciated. And there are people who are in great spaces where that does happen. And I know for me personally, I'm a person who wants to cultivate and curate that in my leadership position. And so that's why I believe in personal development. That is why I'm currently in Focus St. Louis and the NLA leadership with UMSL, because I know that being a leader is not something you just gain by title. It's something you have to work at and you have to develop. That is why every Sabbath you see us over on the Hebrew Woman channel covering different books and topics. And right now we're going chapter by chapter through the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. So these are things to me that are important. It is important that we have these conversations and that people can have a skill set that allows them to navigate these things. People think, a lot of times that certain people aren't qualified to have certain conversations, or you're not qualified to do that. If you are living life, you're qualified to be in whatever space and have whatever conversation you want. So don't feel like you can't come up and speak because you're not an expert on these topics. You're a person who's living it. So that makes you expert to me, because you're actually living the experiences. You're working in these spaces. You're out here doing the work. You're dealing with people every day. So I will put all this together and we'll talk to you guys about it later. I hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. And as always, shoot me an email at sister7@gmail.com. SISTAH7@gmail.com. And let's really work on building the Working Class Chronicles. Shalom.